How to handle boredom in prison. That's right. You're about to get an exclusive video on content that you just can't find on YouTube. There's a lot of content about prison and a lot of content about prison fights and prison gangs, but there's not a lot of content about boredom in prison. And in this video, you're going to get an exclusive per viewer request on how to handle boredom in prison. I'm going to break down to you the experiences that I had while I was in the cell block, extended lockdown, the dungeon, the hole, depending on where you're geographically located, they call it different names. But here in the South, we call it the dungeon. So when you're in the dungeon, in extended lockdown, that means you're locked down 23 hours a day, and you get out for an hour to walk up and down the tier, take your shower, back in the cell for the next 23 hours. And there are times where you might not get out the cell because they might not give you showers and they might not give you exercise time. Going outside is almost unheard of. It's almost impossible. There's only been a few times where the officers had enough time to take you outside and put you in the bullpen. The bullpen is another cage outside on the yard, that specific yard that's separated and segregated for the specific purpose of being in the dungeon. And if you're in the hole, you're not getting in the bullpen with anybody else. You might luck out and get next to a dude that you know and that you like and y'all cool and y'all can talk to each other and he's in the bullpen next to you. But for 23 hours a day, what do you do when you're in the hole? What's the longest stretch of time that I spent in the hole? The longest amount of time that I spent in the dungeon was 5 months. That's right. Back-to-back days was the longest I spent in the hole was 5 months at a time. There are dudes who spent years in the hole. There's a guy, his name is Tommy Silverstein. Look him up. He spent the last part of his life, probably about 30 years in the hole, 30 years in isolation. There are people who are doing time in Colorado in the Supermax prison who have been in isolation for the last couple decades. I personally know people who spent years and years in the hole. I met a few dudes who spent a decade plus in the hole as well, personally in Louisiana. But for me, I'm going to share with you what I did to keep my mind sane while I was doing time in isolation. And being in isolation is a hard thing. If you can imagine and fathom it, try to picture yourself, the life that you have. Take yourself away from everything and throw yourself in complete isolation. You don't have a phone. You can't make a phone call, even if it was collect. You don't have access to talk to someone whenever you want professional help. You can't go to work. You can't do anything. There's no TV in the hole. You don't get a TV in the dungeon. Anyway, I wrote down for you on an index card 10 things that you can do to stay sane while you're doing time, or to keep yourself busy, or to break the boredom while you're in isolation, while you're doing time in prison. Number one, this one is really going to blow your mind. I bet you have no clue what I'm about to say. I know you don't, because I don't even know personally many people who did this, but this is what I did to occupy my mind while I did time in isolation. And that is finger figures. That's right. My fingers would be figures. Kind of like G.I. Joe and Transformer figures, I would turn my fingers into fighting figures. That's right. Fighter 1, Fighter 2. Pow, poof, ah, poof, ah, boom, come back here. Power it up. They flying. They don't have to stand on the ground. Depending, you can create multiple figures. You can create animals. Look at this one. Look. Three-headed monster. This one shoots laser beams, fire, ice. Who's he fight against? He fights against the forward monster, pure brute force. And so you create these figures and these toys with your fingers that you can occupy your mind and your time with. And I would spend hours and hours creating my little characters to fight against one another. And I would lay down on the ground and I would have battles with my figures, and he would call back up and another figure would come, or they would weave in and out the bars or up and down the walls, or I would lay on my bed and sometimes my flying figures would be over my head like this one, like shoo, 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 shoo. And so you would make figures with your fingers to occupy your time. I didn't meet a lot of people who did this. It was something that I did to occupy my time, to keep my mind sane. Another thing that you can do, and I did a lot of this, I probably, out of all the things on this list, besides sleeping, I did this one thing the most, more than anything, and that was pacing. I would pace back and forth in my cell. Here's the front of the cell because you're in like a 10 by 5 cell. You know, you go back this way. You got your toilet right here. Your bed's on the side of you. Turn around, walk, 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all day long for hours in the cell. You would walk so much that the bottom of your slippers would be torn. You could, the bottom of your slippers, look at the bottom of these slippers. The bottom of your slippers would be destroyed while you were in that cell doing your time because you would be pacing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And in those cells, they keep your property. You don't get much in there. So a lot of times I've been in the dungeon where all you could get is slippers. They don't give you tennis shoes. So you can't stay strapped up. You either are barefooted or you have your shower slides on. Now, sometimes, depending on what prison you're in, if it's in like a working cell block, or that's your housing unit is a cell block, you can have your tennis shoes. But if you're in isolation, they don't give you no tennis shoes. You ain't getting no tennis shoes with no shoestrings on it, man. You crazy? The people ain't giving you that. You got shower slides, and that's a wrap. You know, so you pace back and forth, back and forth. I had so many hours where I would think and think. And see, I got to the point to where I was wise. I didn't want nobody else to know my business in my cell because my cell was my cell. So I wouldn't drag my shower slides. I learned how to step up, or I would keep them off and I would go barefooted back and forth so nobody knew I was pacing. Because dudes don't have nothing but time to do and they watching everything and they looking through them balls or they trying to listen, you know, so they can hear what you're doing. They want to know everything. They want to know when you're awake, when you're sleeping. See, they trying to play games. Everything is mental games back there. It's a psychology test. You know what I mean? I'm telling you some wild stuff in isolation, but this is specifically talking about what you do to help with the boredom. The next thing you can do is read. But here's the thing. Isolation in the dungeon is usually punishment. So you don't have a lot of books to read. So whatever book sneaks through the cracks or whatever book the officer lets come through the tier, or maybe another orderly sneaks in or another inmate finds a way to sneak in back there, you read what you can get. That's right. I've read some crazy books when I was in the dungeon that I never would have read on the main compound, because it just wasn't my interest. I've read some weird stuff, man. And so you read whatever you can get your hands onto. Just read, because reading will get your mind out of there. You can read the Quran. You can read the Holy Bible. Those are two books that they allow you even when you're in the hole. And there's a lot that you can learn. I had my Bible with me. I struggled to read it because I was at that point in my life when I did those 5 months straight. Those 5 months wasn't the only 5 months I'd done in the dungeon. I'd done other stretches. It's just the most I'd done at any given time in the hole was 5 months. So I would spend my time back there and I had my Bible, man. I remember looking at my Bible and I was like, man, I ain't ready. You know, and I had read the Bible. I read lots of the Bible by this point, but I remember being back there and just struggling with my internal man about myself and the direction I was going and where I was at. And so I didn't read as much as I should have, you know, but I met a dude who was an atheist. He was so bored. He read the Bible from front to back. He spent so much time in the hole, and he did it like in 2 or 3 months. And he read the whole Bible. And he's like, man, some wild stuff they got in that Bible. I was like, yeah, do you believe it? He said, I'm a lot closer now than I ever was. I'm still not there. He said, but I tell you what, I know more than I ever did before when he read that Bible, because he ain't had no choice, because that was the only thing he had, or he was going to go crazy. So he read the Bible. So you read what you can get. Another thing, man, brush your teeth. I would brush my teeth 10 times a day. Brush my teeth when I first woke up. Brush my teeth after breakfast. You know, brush my teeth before lunch, after lunch. You know what I mean? You brush your teeth nonstop. And the state has to give you little toothpastes, little small toothpaste things. And you don't get to order nothing. You get a little small toothpaste and a little toothbrush. And man, I would brush my teeth constantly, man. Constantly brush my teeth. Just nonstop. Brush, brush, brush. So you brush your teeth just to stay sane. That might sound crazy, but when you don't have nothing else to do, you tend to do crazy stuff like brush your teeth nonstop, you know? But the next thing is you clean your cell compulsively. That's right. You can get, they have people who are so compulsive when it comes to how much they clean their surroundings. They literally, it's like the military. They wipe every single nook and cranny with rags. That's one thing the state's going to do. The state will give you towels and cleaning supplies. They come up and down the tier because part of their job as an officer is to make sure that the tier and the cell block and your cell's clean. So when the warden, the assistant warden, or the captain makes their rounds, or somebody important from the state capital comes down to the prison to inspect things, They want to make sure it's clean. So they believe in cleanliness in prison. So you get cleaning supplies. They come up and down the tier. They hand it to you, hand you the bucket. You got to sweep. And you're like, there ain't nothing in here. I done wiped it down with toilet water. That's like bleach water. You know what I mean? You keep yourself clean. And I said it before, man. This is where I had to literally take bird baths in the toilet because they wouldn't let us get to the shower. And then there was bucks, revolts on the tier, all the tiers, but dudes were like, we ain't taking showers. You know what I mean? They were like, we ain't taking showers because we want to talk to the warden. They'd be trying to negotiate something. So you couldn't go in no shower because you'd be against the system, the people, your fellow inmates. So I bird bathed up in that toilet. You know, the toilet was clean. I had my little bar soap, state bar soap. You take your bath in the toilet, clean yourself up, clean your toilet. You poo in the toilet. And you take baths in the toilet. And if you ain't got no choice, you'll drink that toilet water if them people leave you in there with nothing else. You ain't gonna die. You'll do what you got to survive. It's called survival. We're gonna do a video real soon. I'm gonna share some survival tips with y'all about prison. You're gonna enjoy it, trust me. The next thing, you can meditate, man. You can meditate, pray, and think. They got a lot of dudes, they just got nothing but time. Some dudes think about foolish stuff. I begin to think about important things, man. I meditated and listen, they say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. That's true. Cause I thought some crazy stuff when I was in that dungeon. I thought some crazy stuff in that hole. I had to get control of my mind. I said, man, I can't think like this. I can't be a savage. I'm trying to change. But it was on my first prison sentence. When I got out, I was still an idiot. I went back. So the stuff that my mind was wrestling with was bad stuff. I'm going back out. I wanted to get back on the scene, get back on the block. Be about my business, get with the homies, you know, rip and run, get back in New Orleans, man, get out there, do my thing, man. You know, you still want it to be known and be known by, you know, but as I matured, that stuff became garbage. But that's what my mentality was when I was doing it 5 months. Now, I done time in a hole on my second prison sentence that got my mind right. I was ready to do the right thing. But I'm talking about specifically, I'm remembering the time I spent when I spent that 5 months in the hole. Another thing, man, and I know y'all was waiting for this one. You ain't got nothing but time. So you wank. Dudes back there wanking till they ain't got nothing coming out but water and pee. Beep, they peeps. You know what I mean? It's crazy, man, but you ain't got nothing to do. So you start acting like a savage. You go back to your primal instincts, you know? And you still got that desire, sexual desire. And don't talk about if one of them officers were a female, man. Them dudes go crazy. And if they got some kind of perfume on, it could be faint. And the whole tea is quiet. They back there wank and sniffing to the perfume. They got the visualization of the female officer walking past. And it don't matter if she was pretty or not. It did not matter. It was just a scent. Dudes do crazy stuff, man, when they're incarcerated, when they're locked down in a dungeon, you know, for months and years at a time. Another thing that you could do is draw. But drawing is hard because you had limited resources. If you were lucky, you would get a full pencil like this. It would find its way into yourself. Lucky. But most pencils were nubs all the way down to here. And so you write. I done seen dudes take the lead because the pencil's all the way over here and you can't write with it. And they put it on a longer piece of thing and they make the pencil work. So you do what you can to do artwork. If you're real lucky, man, and really blessed, you can find an ink pen. You learn how to do those strokes and you can do art. And I did art. Creative stuff. You ain't got to be a professional artist, but whatever you can to occupy your time, you read, you write, and you do your art. But in the dungeon, they don't have to give you no special pens. They give you, you know, corresponding. You can get a letter, you can get stamps, and you get a legal pad with a pencil. But if you were lucky, you can get a pen or a full-size pencil so you could do you some artwork, man, and help you get the time by, man. Draw a crazy picture, man. Spend hours a day just to escape, you know. Another thing is work out, man. Dudes work out. I mean, everybody in prison, for the most part, is in shape because you ain't got nothing to do. Push-ups. You in the cell nonstop all day, you're going to do 500 push-ups a day, 150 sit-ups, 200 sit-ups, squats, you know, pacing back and forth, you know, shadow boxing. A lot of dudes used to like the shadow box. You get, they practice they fighting, you know what I mean? Getting ready, man. You got to stay ready. You don't know when it's going to kick off. So working out is another thing. But I'm going to tell you the craziest thing out of all the things I said. It's the final one. And that's voices. You learn to listen to the voices. And sometimes you got to decipher if the voices were real or if they were supernatural or they were in your imagination. See, I know stories and I personally have heard voices that you know is not there. But it was something. It was real. It was tangible. Even though it wasn't in the natural. It was a supernatural voice. Something spoke to you. Whether it was subconsciously, you heard it in your head. And sometimes people hear audible voices that aren't natural and they supernatural, but they hear them in the natural. And this stuff sounds crazy, but try doing time in isolation in a dungeon. And see, I believe in spiritual things. I believe in the supernatural. And so I know voices are real. You got demonic voices. You got God's voice. You got your memories. You got your own thoughts. Everything's fighting against you. And you got to learn to hear the good voices over the bad voices. Because make no mistake, there are voices that you hear that say good stuff to your intellect and your dialect. And you begin talking back. When you start talking back to the voices, well, see, you praying. Or maybe you talking to a demon. I don't know. That's how crazy it gets. The lines are blurred. But to keep your mentality and your sanity when you inside the dungeon, you got to make your decision what's best for you. And I had to pray. I prayed to God, the Christian God. That's who I worship. And so I talked to him, Lord, help me. And that's how I learned how to pray. Nobody taught me how to pray. Desperation taught me how to pray. That's what taught me how to pray. See, when you're so desperate, you find out what's real and what ain't. You find out what's evil and what's good. And that's what I had to do when I was in the dungeon, you know? And so these are the things that you do to maintain your mind and your sanity when you're in the hole in prison. And to escape boredom, you do things like play with your fingers, like they're puppets or action figures, G.I. Joe versus Transformers, whatever you imagine. This wasn't Hasbro and Kenner. This was my thoughts, whoever I wanted them to be. This was me fighting against the booty bandit. Shank, shank, ah! Yeah, you punk, you got what you deserve. Here, light him on fire. Ah! Ah! You did what you had to do your time. And that's how prison works. And yeah, prison is a place that should be understood because a lot of the people who are in your society are coming home from those places. Or you know people who's in there, going there. And you want to know where their mindset's at, right? A smart person in society is going to know everybody who's around. You want to know everybody else who's around you, where they come, what country they come from. You better know what prison they coming from. So you know how to operate and how to deal with people around you because everybody's moving on different structure. Man, welcome to the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube. Give me a like, thumbs up, hit that hype button, subscribe to the channel, become a part of a growing community of crime and prison genre, you know what I mean, on these YouTube universities, you know? Man, give me a like and subscribe like I said, man. Share this video. Share in the comments your thoughts, and let's get it.